Do we get nice music? Can we get some lounge music? No? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We would never do a show yet. Oh, that's what this is. Some hip hop. This all elevator music.
Ooh, groovy.
Yeah, this is supposed to be hip hop. This is straight piano love music too. All right. We got people jumping in. The music will disappear. I know it's nice, but you can listen to the dulcet tones of myself, Ryan Peters, and Mr. Travis Butt, as we are here live, ready to get the weekly show underway. We got all kinds of stuff. We got the news. We're going to break down in Atlanta. We got some wise words from Bubba Wallace, possibly. Maybe. I guess we'll find out and see. And we'll get to the picks at the end of it. But we're ready to rock and roll. So let's go ahead and get started. This is your weekly show on Stuck in the Catch Fence. What's going on, boys and girls? My name is Ryan Peters. Thanks for joining in. I'm with Travis. But Travis, does your car sound like that? Ready for the bird?
Mine's usually smoking or blowing up of some sort. So that's not. I wish my motor sounded like that.
Yeah, my Cavalier sounds like that. Actually, I run a Hornet. I got a muffler tip like that big. I usually put a watermelon in it so like mics don't get in there. But yeah, it's real nice.
2.2 Eco.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Big time. Well, I want to thank everybody for joining in, and for those that will be jumping here in just a little bit. Again, we have the rundown. We got the quick question here coming up. NASCAR news. We'll talk a little bit of what Bubba Wallace had to say. It was a slow news week, so we did have something to talk about with Bubba Wallace, and actually has some late breaking news that Travis brought up earlier, and we'll also break down Atlanta. Zach, yeah, he flaked out on us, Zach. I know, man. I know. It is what it is. There's nothing we can do. So you in the chat will just have to take the place in the spirit of Joe. But let's go ahead and get the show started with a quick question right now. The quick question to you, Travis. Who is to blame for the late wreck at Daytona? We had Stacking Pennies with Corey LaJoy. He said that he's not going to be friends with Austin Cindric, but at the same time, also blamed Ross Chastain. Austin Cindric says he doesn't care what Corey LaJoy says. It was his fault. And then Ross Chastain, I haven't seen him say anything, but it seems like it's just kosher to say Ross's fault.
I think the prize money at the end of the race was really the issue, if we're going to be honest with you. And the trophy, 28 mil, the trophy at the end being called a Daytona 500 winner. I think Ross said it best when he said that, he would go to bed. If he went to bed and he didn't know he didn't make that move and just lost the Daytona 500, the what if, it's hindsight 2020 and everything. And I don't know. I really don't see a blame of anything. Did Ross make a Ross move? Yeah. I mean, but who wouldn't do that? I don't think he makes that move at Talladega or the summer Daytona race. I think he might hang in there, but when you got a chance and you got that momentum, I think you take it. I think Cindric came out and said that it wasn't Ross's fault, but it was because of um I can't think of his name. Of what's his name pushing him from the
Corey
back.
LaJoie?
Corey, wow. Corey pushing him from the left rear. If we look back at Talladega last year, Corey was to blame for the wreck at the end of the Talladega race in the fall, the one we went to.
Yep.
He's the one that caused the big old pile up that didn't need to happen at the end of that. So, I think everyone's just pushing. That's what happens when I think someone said it best, when you got a 500-mile race and 480 miles of it is fuel mileage, and the last 20 miles is, all right, everyone push, 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 let's go. So I really don't have a blame in anybody. I think everyone was just being aggressive, and it's kind of like a chain reaction type of thing. So if Ross wasn't as aggressive, but who says that Corey's pushing his left and Cindric's left rear didn't turn him anyway? So It's all kind of I think it's all situational, and it's all opinion based. He said, she said type of stuff. So really don't blame anybody, if we're going to be honest with you. But I really don't know who you would blame there.
Is Austin Cindric and Corey LaJoie the most unlikely rivalry that we thought we would have after week one? I mean, those are two guys. Number one, if you're Corey LaJoie, you got shown up in your own equipment last year, and now that driver's racing in your equipment with Carson Hocevar. So he really needs to have a good year because he's the elder statesman, if you will. He's supposed to lead that charge with Spire. And then Austin Cindric, after winning the Daytona 500, in his sophomore year, got his hind end handed to him. So two drivers pushing for the lead. And if you want to know who's to blame, it's restrictor plate racing. I mean, that's just all there is to it. That's what happens. Honestly, that might be the cleanest move that we see Ross Chastain try to make all year, because Austin Cindric was the one that got squirrely. I thought Ross saw a proper hole. It wasn't his fault. It just simultaneously, Cindric comes up, Ross hits it. But for God's sakes, if we're going to blame Ross for everything, at least let it be like somewhat Ross's fault. He wasn't the one pushing; it was the ones at the bottom. And we had some bad pushes. Actually, two of the guys that ended up finished 1 and 2 were the product of that. They got to be 1 and 2 because of some bad pushes that everybody else got to suffer from, those bad pushes there on the backstretch that started the big one. So it is what it is. It's just fun to talk about. It's good for it's good for stacking pennies, and I guess it's a good thing that if people get to see a headline to hate Ross Chastain, it's another reason to hate Ross Chastain.
Yep. And like I said, I do you blame him? No. Would you go to, I don't think he would have lived with himself all week long thinking, well, if I would have made that move and would have dove there, I could have won the Daytona 500. So like you said, I think it's just restricted plate racing, 1 lap to go, 28 mil on the line, 500 trophy on the line. You got to go for it.
Yep, I agree. Well, that is going to do it for the quick question. Let's dive into the NASCAR news. Boy, did I forget how loud that drop was. That and hearing 5 lug nuts. That was kind of it's getting more and more retro. Yeah. Now it, oh no, Kyle, come back. So we have some NASCAR news. Actually, Travis, you broke the biggest news to me, so we'll save that for last, because that's how you're supposed to do things. You're supposed to got to keep them in, got to reel them in, and then it might end up breaking your heart if it wasn't worth reeling them in. So we'll go ahead and get it started. Derek Kraus, the 22-year-old, a lot of people thought was a pretty solid prospect when he was down in the ARCA series, and a little bit lower than that. He will run, I believe it's between 8 and 9 races for Colleague Motorsports this year. Obviously, Colleague has decided to turn itself into Rick Ware Racing and put anybody in a car that can draw sponsorship. So, Travis, what did you think when you first heard this? Is this something that you thought Derek Kraus would be a little further along than that right now, or is this more just kind of this is where Colleague is?
It's interesting because I thought he would be pretty good in trucks. He was, I think, at McNaughtley for 2 years, and that they split. Obviously, I didn't see much of him. He was kind of like I think he was like the Alex Bowman of Hendrick Motorsports back in 2014 and 2015, where he would just in 2016 where he just kind of did some of the sim work. He did some of their testing and stuff like that. He's able to come in. I'm a little shocked. He kind of went from trucks. He did a couple of Xfinity races last year, and then now he's going to go to cup racing. So I'm interested. I'm not going to doubt him. I thought he always had talent. I think you look at a lot of the people that struggle in trucks, and they're okay in Xfinity and okay in Cup. So I'm not going to knock him until I see him for the first few races. A little exciting, but like you said, I think I'm interested to see what sponsorship he has because when he was at McDowell, he didn't have any sponsorship because all their trucks are sponsored by Napa and some of the B2B stuff they've had. When he raced for Xfinity last year for a colleague, he had colleague sponsorship, had all of colleague sponsors and stuff.
Late filter and things like that.
Yeah, so I'm interested to see, did he bring sponsorship to the table, or are they just trying to give, Derek a chance to like, hey, I can prove myself here. Like, give me a chance and some, equipment, and, go from there. So I'm interested. I thought it's good to see, colleague take a chance, but also makes you wonder, if Derek did bring any sponsorship to the table, why is Allmendinger still in Xfinity, especially if he doesn't bring any sponsorship to the table? I mean, 9 races. I think someone said you got to have be competitive. What 150 to 200, 150,000 a race. So, we're looking at $1 million.
Right.
Did $1 million stop Allmendinger from not racing anymore? So I don't know. I'm interested. I want to give the kid a chance, and hopefully, he does well. And I always like to see colleague do well. So
Mooch is saying for Travis to stop. Why would Mooch be doing that to you, Travis?
Oh, he's on the basketball coaching staff. They always want to give me crap about my NASCAR expertise.
Yeah. So, is there anything, Mooch? Can you bring anything to the table besides telling somebody to stop doing what they love and their passion? We'll be here in the chat. The other piece of news, I have nothing else to add to Derek Kraus. I think he ended up being in 8 Xfinity races last year for colleague and was top 5 or top 10 in 3 of them. So that's solid. It's a totally different car, obviously, than Xfinity, and probably a pretty scary racetrack to go to in the slippery, sliding, brand new pavement of Atlanta. So if he ends up having a good showing, I think it will, definitely say that this kid still has the talent, and he'll be put on showcase at maybe one of the scariest tracks, a super speedway at 1.5 miles with, almost a third less room than what we just saw at Daytona. Some other NASCAR news. NASCAR decided it was going to have practice, but not the type of practice you want. They are practicing, and this is for 2 10-minute practices after qualifying. So not even enough for the drivers to then get in their car first. They have to qualify first. Then they get to have practice to try to get on pit road because I don't know. So NASCAR is going to keep the pit road at the beginning of turn 3, and they want drivers to practice getting onto pit road instead of actually practicing to see if their cars are any good. And practice last week, more practice, maybe would have helped Michael McDowell solve any possible electrical issues that would have came up. But no, we don't get practice anymore unless it's to practice getting on pit road. What did you think, Travis, when you heard that?
I think it was just a bad design. If we're going to be honest with you, I think it's part of Atlanta just having that part of the bad design. I think, like I said, I think in about 5 to 6 years, I think Atlanta is going to be a completely different track, and I think it's going to be same configuration, but I think it's going to produce some cool racing when it gets less traction and older pavement. But I'm interested. I think I don't remember the exact amount of power. I think it's 75 mile an hour throughout the curve, and then it's 45, 55.
45, yeah.
Yeah, when you get I don't know. I think it's just a lot of crap. I think in my opinion, I think it should just be, the pit entrance is right there, but I think you should just be able to haul your rear end all the way to that line and make it to 45. But you got the commitment line just needs to be.
Right.
I think if someone wants to haul butt in there and mess up and slide up and wreck themselves, you're a dummy. But in my opinion, I think you need to be. I think that the pit road speed of 75 mph to 45 is just ridiculous. I think it just needs to be how fast can you get on the pit road, and then you got to be down to 45 mph. So I think it's a little bit. I don't know the right word for it, but I think it's a little bit ridiculous.
It's very gimmicky. That's for damn sure compared to anything else.
I think it's just a Band-Aid. I think it's just a Band-Aid. I think everything's just a Band-Aid with NASCAR right now, and I think it's just a Band-Aid for the poor design. I don't think they had a big old plan. Like I said, I think, can you make the pit entrance right there? Heck yeah, you can. It's just like an access road. You got to be on that access road. But if you want to go 150 mile an hour down that access road, go for it. But guess what? Right. I just think it's an issue. So it's interesting practice. I'm not a big fan of. I get what they're trying to do because everyone thinks that you have the same setup. You come to all these super speedways, but I think as we've seen last year, they did 2,500 qualifying with Chandler Smith, with Colleague having an electrical issue or clutch issue, whatever it was, getting out. Michael McDowell last year, which I guess that was. They did have some practice after the twin races. I just, I get what they're trying to do with the cost saving, but I think having just a 30-minute practice with everybody would just do everyone just fine. Right. Just make sure you get all the kinks out because, everything's so electrical now. You have so much electrical work. It's not like back in the day where there wasn't so much electrical. There's so many electrical parts that go into these cars anymore, and a little bitty shortage or whatever just kills the cars. So
it's not 2020, Ray. Stop it. Zach said small town speed trap. Zach, it's not a speed trap when they're testing you for your breathalyzer, okay, buddy? I understand that. You think it's entrapment, but it really isn't. No, I think to your point is when they made Atlanta, I feel like they had this grand idea, they ran it, they did it, and then like one driver just came and said, "Oh, okay, so it runs a lot faster. It's in the draft. Did you guys do anything to pit road?" And the designer was like, "1 moment, please." Shit. Yeah, we're gonna have to do something to try to fix that because we don't want guys trying to dive down at like this banking. Like Daytona, it softens out. You have that extra length to then slow down. At Atlanta, it's like you're coming off of it in the cars, especially the first year I was there. That's a lot of times where they were losing it. They were coming out of turn 4 and they were just losing it. So you're right. It's trying to put bubble gum over the water hole at the Hoover Dam, like Chevy Chase was trying to do at Vegas Vacation. And I don't know. Ray says they are the best of the best. They don't need practice unless it's a brand new track.
Hey, I think there's points of practice, but for me, just being a big NASCAR guy, I like seeing that. I think it gets out some kinks. Even if it's just like
professional sport practices.
Yeah, and I think you just look at as for a standpoint of like dirt racing, and Ray's a dirt racer. Ray's a dirt racer, but I think you look at hot laps. If they took hot laps out of dirt racing, I use that for the sake of any changes we made. You make sure you have everything's there. You don't have any issues. I can think of a couple of times where I've gone to the track and go, holy crap, we got something, we got a spark plug wire off, or we got, we have this issue, or, there's times where I've gone out there and we broke a brake line or whatever. And you go, wow, like, I'm glad that didn't happen in the heat races. I'm glad that I fixed that in hot laps.
Yeah.
Even if they just go out there and you tell them, hey, you guys get 10 laps out there, whatever, or Daytona, hey, you get 5 laps out there. Run 5 laps. If you want to make any changes, make changes or whatever. So I think, even if it's just maybe a hot lap session, with everybody, hey, you get 2 laps out there, 2-3 laps out there, There's your hot laps, and then you do that right before qualifying. Kind of like an iRacing. I don't know if a lot of people do iRacing, but you have a 5-minute warm up session, and then you go into you go into qualifying or you go into the race or whatever. So I think if they look at it that way, I think you would solve some issues, and I think you would also solve some frustrations. If we're going to be honest with you, but
Yeah, I think it's silly for uh, professional athletes to get into something that can change that they don't have. Like Travis, if you do warm ups in basketball to say, okay, my shot's a little bit off. I'm going to tweak some things to try to get my shot better. But we put guys behind a 200-mile-an-hour vehicle and go, yeah, just run it as fast as you can in qualifying. And, after that one lap, figure out what the hell's wrong with it. And, good luck on race day. Like, I
yeah.
just feel like that is crazy. Crazy. It just doesn't make that much sense to me. But nonetheless, who am I? I'm just some guy in my mom's basement waiting for the meatloaf to get done. So, we are moving on now to the other news, some legal news. And only thing that we can say is that Kyle Busch Motorsports, which ceases to now exist as Spire Motorsports, is suing Rev Racing for what Kyle Busch and his team is saying that they did not pay their sponsorship. So actually, this is back-to-back weeks without sponsorship payment news. Greg Biffle did not drive for NY Racing because he said he did not get paid last year for driving for NY Racing, so he won't drive for them. And now Kyle Busch is suing Rev Racing, which does receive some funds due to its diversity, inclusion, all kinds of other different types of things from NASCAR for running that. And I don't know what exactly is the side of it, but Kyle Busch essentially in the lawsuit is saying I was shorted $353,000. That's pretty much all we know about it. Is there anything, Travis, that you know more about or would like to add to it?
No, I think that they had that technical alliance between the two, and Kyle Busch Motorsports last year built all of Rev Racing's cars for Sanchez, and that technical alliance, that's not they probably had in payments. It looks like it was 2.9 million. So if you look at 3 million, divided over by 12 months, that sounds like they missed the last two payments. Last payment looks like they didn't pay the last payment, so that's a chunk of change. I didn't realize. Someone said, what was it? Someone said a couple years ago that you needed like 1.5 million. You need 1.5 million to run a full season of trucks,
Mm-hmm.
roughly. So it's kind of interesting that it cost them $3 million for a technical alliance. But the way I look at it too is, I bet Rev didn't own any of the equipment. They literally just had Kyle Busch build every single truck, and then they would just take the truck and take it to the racetrack. And
Yeah.
guess that was more of that was probably for trucks and everything else. So wouldn't even call it I wouldn't even call it whatever. So interesting.
It sounds to me,
But
Travis, based on your math, it's like when they sold to Spire that Rev Racing was like, yeah, just don't worry about cutting checks anymore. That KBM doesn't exist. It's
yeah,
almost like they kind
it's
of
almost
got
like
to
that
that
last
point.
month they didn't pay it, and they're like, yeah, last month, whatever. Like Lillard Pub, you really think about it. So 300,000 a month so I guess 300,000 a month would be a little bit more than that. But yeah, it sounds like you could probably look at it and say that they didn't pay their last couple months. You know,
Ray says, I'm ready for Atlanta. Jesus, criminy Ryan. I'm ready for Atlanta. It has become one of my favorite races, and also said that it costs about $7 million to run at Cup.
I
Atlanta
think.
is one of my favorite. Sorry to cut you off there, Travis.
No,
It
you're
is.
good. You're good.
I highly recommend going. This is the first year I haven't went in the last 3, because last year when I went, it was in the 40s and they moved it to February. And I said, there's no way that I'm going to try to do that. And then, of course, like it's supposed to be 65 degrees. So it is what it is. I highly recommend going to Atlanta. Plenty of places to stay. Just from my own experience, if you guys are ever thinking about it, I do Airbnb and I have stayed at somebody's house for usually $50 a night. And it's perfect. And if that's your thing, if you want to spend $150 for a hotel, you can. I'm the guy that spends $50, wakes up, goes to Waffle House, and then I'm at the track. So yeah. The last bit of news, and this is pretty tough. Bob Procrast was talking about this later in the day. Appreciate Travis for sharing it. It seems that the number 10 and the number 41 car for Stewart-Haas Racing are having parts of the back of the car confiscated, and it will go to NASCAR. And we here at Stuck in the Catch Fence have an exclusive interview with Tony Stewart whenever he was notified by NASCAR.
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
That's never gonna get old. And the reason why they would say that, Travis, is because, well, they own the record for the highest fine in NASCAR history when Stewart-Haas Racing and Chase Briscoe's car was found to have a counterfeit part. And it was so bad that Stewart-Haas did not even try to appeal it. They're like, yeah, we screwed up in our essentially in checking over the car. And there was a counterfeit part in it where Chase lost over 100 points. I believe he was fined over $300,000. Stewart-Haas Racing was. And, well, Travis, we're not even two races into the season, and Stewart-Haas finds himself right back in the same spot.
And man, and that's 2 cars this time. I think you and I were talking a little before the show about, and I don't know the quite math on this, but I'm pretty sure they had another time last year.
150 points. Thank you, Ray. I appreciate that.
There we go. I'm pretty sure last year they had another, then you think about Kevin Harvick last year getting disqualified at the end of the race.
Yep, that was one. Yeah,
so,
it's been horrific for them since the next gen car.
So I look at all that and go, wow, like they really are. They're losing a lot of money over there. They already talked about not having sponsorship. They're not having some of this other stuff, and then look at them lose probably. What was it, $500,000 last year? And then they have, whatever comes out of this, that's 2 cars. So, I look at it from a standpoint of racing too. You're trying to find every edge you can get. I can think of, I'll be the first one to admit last year, we tried something different on our rear end of our race car, and, we got caught immediately. We got told to take it off. So, we tried a couple different bushings and stuff, and we got told to take it off immediately. But, I've always said if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. There's two type of race car drivers. There's 2 type of teams out there. There's losers and there's cheaters. Cheaters win.
That's why you're a Hendrick fan. I mean, obviously, like Jimmy Johnson and his crew chief that got into the NASCAR Hall of Fame. Nobody got more caught trying to alter their vehicles.
Hey.
But you're not wrong.
I think someone said.
Sterling Marlin was literally tugging on the front fender in a red flag at the Daytona 500.
I look at who it was. Jeff Gordon that said it in one of the stuff, and he says if your car is going through Daytona and you come back and your car comes through, and he says on the first time that you got the clear, you're not a fast car. But if your car struggles going through tech, you got to buy a fast car.
Whoa, so, Ryan taking shot at Hendrick fans. I'm not taking shots at Hendrick fans. I will drink shots with Hendrick fans. I'm taking shots at the guys that run at Hendrick. I'm not taking shots at Hendrick fans. I would have made that personable about Travis. I didn't make that personal about Christopher. Hey, stop trying to start drama when it's not there, bud. Come on now. No, I'm just kidding.
Hendrick, no, Hendricks don't break rules. They make rules. That's what Hendrick does over there. They're not rule breakers. They're rule makers. Is that the right term for it?
I don't know. That is some high class. We think we are above everybody else. Bullshit. If I have ever heard something in my entire life. Holy cow.
But you know,
I'm
I
up in
think,
my basement, but for God's sakes, let me pull my pants up.
oh man, I just look at SHR is trying to find something. They're trying to find a little speed. Obviously, they're trying something that they probably didn't do a very good job hiding. It's probably like their would have been like Chase Briscoe last year when he had that counterfeit part and ran 30th all race long. Is it something like that? But I don't know. It's worth trying, but
Yeah,
I guess they
that's
gotta.
even that was at Phoenix, right?
No, that was
That
a
he had,
Charlotte.
or is that Charlotte? Yeah.
It was a
I thought
Charlotte.
there was one race. See, and I might be conflating the two. I thought there was one race that they got caught doing something wrong. No. You're right. I'm wrong. I'm
'Cause I think it was
making.
a
I'm thinking
600.
of yeah. And he ran, like you said, he ran poorly. And then last year, the thing that Kevin Harvick got caught for was not fastening down the windshield or
Yeah,
something.
and they said, "Oh, the bolts got what shook off during the
Yeah,
race,"
they riveted
and
loose.
someone even said, "I don't care what you could have done, they would have not have riveted it off."
Yeah. Ah, we forgot the Loctite at home. Fuck it,
Yeah,
Kevin. Good luck. So, well, guys, that has been the NASCAR news. So, this will be the first time the world has seen. We are going to now bring up our new segment, Bubba Talks Wisdom.
Where this says I can't breathe, I have a responsibility. It's automatic.
Off of turn 4 here. Bubba Wallace. And he comes back across the track.
What's happening after the race? Now it's going to
Yes. I've been waiting all
That's
day
good.
for people to see that.
that was good.
Yeah.
That was good.
So,
That was good.
And we like to give Bubba Wallace some flack on this show. Travis likes to give it to him on the track. We actually heard a booing contest at Talladega between Travis and some 2311 fans. So I try to be, what's the right word? Whenever Bubba Wallace deserves it, I give it to him. And whenever I think he does good, I try to be as transparent as I possibly can. So, again, a slow news week until literally the biggest news that we had was the Stuart Haas stuff. But during the truck race, kind of just to set you up for where we are. Last year's truck championship was one of the biggest shit shows I've ever seen. I mean, we had Corey Heim going after Hocevar that were causing wrecks that end up hurting Enfinger. He got screwed out of the entire deal. And if you could back into a championship, Ben Rhodes, which I like Ben Rhodes, ended up winning the championship because of the chaos by the youth. And now, first week of the NASCAR season, the truck race again was an absolute crap show. It was good at the end, but during the middle, the second stage including, I mean, there's so many trucks, drivers just don't care anymore. We talked about on the post race show, there's not even a lot of guys, veterans that are in there. I mean, it's like Matt Crafton and maybe one or two other people that, aren't 18, 19 years old. So during the Daytona race, there was a tweet sent out by a lot of people who know Dave Moody. Dave Moody said, last night's Truck Series race did nothing to advance its reputation or standing in the sport. It's a long way from the glory days of Ron Hornaday, the Gunslinger, and the Onion. Not sure what NASCAR can do. Bubba Wallace saw this, and Bubba Wallace did win some races in the Truck Series. Actually drove for Kyle Busch. Said, remember when we complained that the Cup guys were ruining the show, ignoring the fact that some weeks the youngins would beat the Cup guys, or the fact that if you junked the field and got the Cup guys caught up in it, they would yank your ass to the side. He continues, I'll tell you to get your shit together, and those words would make an impression. And he actually did, believe said that to Rajah Caruth, from what we can tell. Some of the most important words I was told coming up through the trucks was Stop Crashing Shit by Kevin Harvick, and goes back to the respect that Kyle Busch has talked about before. Not saying Cup guides need an unlimited amount again in the trucks, but there was a level of respect when those guys were in the field. Seems like the majority now do not care about one another and just do before they think. And then Bubba Wallace has to be the victim at the end. I don't know anything, though. because Bubba Wallace can't just have an educated conversation and then throw it back that, he's stupid. So that being said, when you saw that, Travis, and I discussed with you that this was going to be the main topic of the show, what were your thoughts?
I think he's got points, and I look at back in the day, you talk about we talk about drivers. Back in the day, these people worked on their own stuff. They worked on their own trucks or Xfinity or Cup. And about 2000, early 2000s, there was a switch where they had to do sponsorship stuff or they had to go to different places. So it went from a 25% didn't work on their car, 75% did, to a 50-50 to a 75-25. Now it's no one works on their own stuff. It leaves it up to the teams to take care of it, who writes the checks. If you write a check, they'll take my stuff for me. And I think that's why sponsorship money and all this stuff is just so widely taken nowadays, because it's like, all right, if they bring in $200,000, okay, that's one race, and if they wreck the truck, we can replace the truck, type of thing. So I think Bubba does got a point there by saying, if you're out there causing havoc, you used to get yanked to the side and being like, hey, like, that's not okay for you to do that. Like, why are you tearing up all this stuff? Like, that's a lot of money. To where nowadays it's like, oh, well, we'll build a new truck, or, it'll all be replaced. This ain't no big deal. You brought enough money. You brought a big old check to the table. It's okay.
Well, one of the things last year, and I agree with all your points, is when Kyle Busch sold KBM, I sat there and said, Kyle Busch to me was one of the best things that happened to trucks. And Kevin Harvick, I'm glad that he brought that up too, is because these owner drivers that are still in the sport can teach these youngins what it takes to mature, because God knows, I mean, Kyle Busch's biggest attraction ever probably was when he intentionally, hooked Ron Hornaday, and it cost Ron Hornaday a championship and things of that nature. And there's a lot of people, 13 years ago that still hate Kyle Busch for that reason. But it's also where Kyle Busch got to learn how to become a race car driver. Did he get brought up probably early and have to go through his works there? Yes, absolutely. But when he's now an owner driver of a truck series team, he can share his knowledge. He can share what it takes to be elite, because Kyle is, William Byron came through KBM and all kinds of John Hunter Nemechek. Insert really good Toyota drivers, and they probably drove for Kyle Busch at one point. And that being said, we really haven't had a lot of young drivers that drove through Kyle Busch that are really that bad. And I think that's because there was an understanding of, number one, take care of your equipment, and number two, know how to race, that Kyle Busch could then share the wisdom with. And I think, Kevin Harvick was that way. Brad Keselowski had some running in the truck series too, I believe, at some point. Not that Brad Keselowski knows what it's like to not tear up equipment, but now we don't have that anymore, Travis. It's a lot of different teams, and as long as you provide your own funding, your racecraft doesn't give a shit as long as the sponsor's on the front of the vehicle. And now, when it's just 18-year-olds racing 19-year-olds, I think there's a lot of things that what Bubba's saying is true. There's nobody there to hold him accountable anymore, whether it's in another truck or whether it's in the pit box, because at the end of the day, as long as our sponsor gets seen and you end up in victory lane, who gives a shit how many people you had to drive through?
Mm-hmm.
And to be fair, that was one of the biggest things that Carson Hocevar had to break through. I mean, the guy he's been caught intentionally spinning out, causing cautions. He's intentionally wrecked people. Noah Gragson didn't do a whole lot of truck. I mean, he started like a 10-car pileup on a damn road course one time, trying to intentionally wreck something. So, I believe what Bubba is saying is true. What will be lost is the fact that Bubba Wallace said it, because, you saw the clip. Who's talking about respect when it comes from Bubba Wallace?
Mm-hmm.
I do agree with the points if you listen to the message and remove it from the messenger.
Yeah, and I think it just comes to the point of like who would be that person that's going to step up, and I don't think nothing. I look back at, like you said, Carson. I think he he got told all this stuff too. It wasn't from drivers, and it finally took Dale Jr. to say something to me like, "Hey, when you gonna start wrecking everything? Like all you do is wreck cars." And I think that was to the point like Carson was like, "Oh crap, I gotta like stop this." And look how and he started winning races. He started winning races.
Yeah.
And I think and you look at Ross last year, and everyone loved Ross because of his aggressiveness. And I think Ross fell off a little bit, but I think he gained some respect because, God, he went through all that stuff and I'll be the first one to admit I'm a huge Kyle Larson fan, and he cost probably Larson 2 wins last year, 2 or 3 wins, just from the way he was. He just wrecked and tore up stuff, and it finally took Mr. H calling him and be like, "Hey, listen, like, we're Chevys together, but you gotta stop wrecking crap." So I think it comes, from the saying of, it's everything's learning, but someone's got to step in and go, "Hey," like, and it probably needs to come from the team owners at some point too. All these people I'm talking about are team owners, and Dale Jr., Hendrick. Some of these people are team owners. Maybe that's who that needs to really step up. I know they like to check, but something's got to change a little bit.
And I think there is a line. We bring up Ross Chastain. The thing that bothers me about Ross Chastain, it wasn't whenever he's trying to win a race and does something. I mean, for God's sakes, I have this right here. I mean, that is the Hail Melon. So that's NASCAR history. That's why people like Ross Chastain. Stay there, Ross. It's when you wreck a guy 5 laps into the race, you go, "What the fuck are you doing?" And that's what we're talking about. Like halfway into the Daytona 500, where somebody has to win, and to win one of the biggest, probably the biggest race in trucks outside of the championship, we're seeing 20-car pileups, and we're like, what are we doing? It's not about Ross trying to win the Daytona 500 on the last lap, where everybody goes, "Yeah, sometimes you have to do stupid shit, but if you find yourself in victory lane, who cares?"
Yeah.
It's the stuff that happens in stage 1 when you're like, why? Why, Ross? Why are you wrecking people, at WWT in the first round where you have both Chase Elliott and Denny Hamlin double teaming you halfway through the race that you can't even get around them and they're lapped? Like, that's the type of stuff that makes you scratch your head. It's not, we can all say, "Well, I don't like when they race for the win." Then tell me you don't like Dale Earnhardt, because everybody liked Dale Earnhardt, and shit, that's all he did was rattle cages. So there's a time and a place to be aggressive. And a lot of these guys, I think they just have no respect or just haven't worked on their racecraft enough to understand that in a 150 lap race, lap 7 is probably not the best situation to put yourself in, where you end up, ruining $400,000, $500,000 worth of equipment. And I think at the same time too, when you look over and it's Lawless Allen that you're racing versus William Byron or Kevin Harvick or Kyle Busch, there's no regrets. The only person last year that we know, Travis, had something to say when he got wrecked was Matt Crafton, and he let his fist do the talking.
Yeah.
And I bet Nick Sanchez will never forget that.
Nope. He's never going to forget that fist, and he's never going to forget what he said afterwards either.
I'll kill you. I'll kill you.
We were there too.
Yep. Yeah, it's just it's wild. But I to Bubba's point, I think that he has the right message. Will the audience listen to it because it's Bubba Wallace? That's yet to be seen.
Hey, and I see, Christopher put a comment in there. I know you haven't shown it yet, but about, Bubba, who's worse, Bubba or Denny. And I look at, it's a little off topic here, but I look at, like, do I like a race car driver, Denny? No, I hate when he wins. Like, I've never been a fan of him. I've always thought he's kind of winded everything. But on the flip side of that, though, I listen to his podcast every week. And it's because he gives cool insight. He gives a good, cool perspective. Like, I love Denny Hamlin outside. I love Denny Hamlin outside of NASCAR Sundays. Like, Monday through Friday, I like Denny. He's okay.
There's a respect that comes with that. That's why.
Yes. And I think
if you thought he was full of shit and didn't know anything, you wouldn't listen to it.
Yeah. And I think he gives good insight. I think he gives good perspective. I highly recommend his podcast. It's interesting. He gives good details. It gives some insight that's like, oh crap, I didn't think about that. Or he gives good insight about the next gen car and cost and everything. I know Ray put $7 million, and I think $7 million would get you about 10 races if you're lucky, and some of this stuff anymore. 7 million would have got you that a long time ago. But I think, but on Sundays, God, I'll move for him every time when he wins. But I tell you what, on Monday, I'll listen to his podcast because he gives good insight.
Well, and the thing too is when you're talking about somebody like Bubba Wallace and Denny Hamlin combining them, I think Bubba Wallace internally is not fun to root for because of who he is. I think Denny Hamlin likes to play the villain and has accepted that role, but at the same time, you don't accidentally get 50 wins in this sport. You have to be good.
I fully respect him on the driver standpoint, 100%. Do I hope he gets a championship? Hell no, I don't. I don't want to hear it. Hell no. But I respect him. I absolutely respect everything that he's done. I respect his driving ability. I respect his thoughts. I just always thought that he was a little bit of kind of a whiner, but I think he has gone into his new role of being like, okay, hey, I'll be the villain. Like, I'll be okay. Like, I'm okay being. I think he was not okay there for 5 years of being that villain, but I think I've respected him more that he's known now as like, okay, like I'm the bad guy. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, and that's possible, Ray. I think he got it because it was the right timing to hire a guy that he thought fit the mold and maybe that helped with Michael Jordan's influence. Joe, the guy that's not with us, I turned the volume down on the Bubba. That's too bad. It was circus music.
Mm-hmm.
So. All right. Well, we've come to the last part of the show where we will preview the Atlanta race, the Ambetter 400. Again, that is taken directly from Travis's race card. So let's go to the Atlanta preview, and we'll start it off. Oh my God, I got a ladybug. Yeah. With, unfortunately, our leaderboard. I think there's a 1 supposed to be in front of that 0. I could be mistaken. I did make it. It's wrong. Joe ended up having 1 point. He got that 1 point with a 9th place finish by Noah Gragson. And then Travis, standing next to Mr. Young Money, got 7 points with 2 drivers by choosing the winner. That is how the rules are. If you win, you get 5 points. And 2 points for a top 5 finish. Also choosing Alex Bowman. So the asterisk will be given for every time we choose a win. So if you like to play at home, the winner, 5 points. A top 5, 2 points. A top 10, 1 point. Make sure you add it into the chat. We play by the rules that you have to use somebody outside the top 20. After 9 races, we will look who's outside the top 20. As of right now, it goes back to last year. So, Travis, you sit on the pole position because you have the most amount of points, but you can defer and give that up to myself. I can get into the chat and look what Joe has decided to send in, or I can go myself. However you want to do it, young man.
Since Joe's not here, let's get his up here. Let's
right.
get his in here. Let's get his.
I'll put it in the chat. I'm going to do that right now, and you guys can see as well. He is going to go with Kyle Larson. He will also go with Ryan Blaney. And I put these in the chat because whenever I watch the videos, it's easy for me to go back and look. Joey Logano, Kyle Busch, and he's going to go back with Noah Gragson. So there again are Joe's picks. It will be Kyle Larson, Ryan Blaney, Joey Logano, Kyle Busch, and Noah Gragson. We have a comment on Logano. Oh, I'm hearing myself talk. That's awful. Don't do that. Timothy Don on Rumble. I'm a huge fan and admire your channel. One thing I notice is that you're not getting the engagement you deserve. I'm here to help with that. I appreciate that spam comment, Timothy Don. No, we're not going to send more feet pic from Travis, so don't ask.
My ankles aren't taped today.
I can see right through that. And also, Timothy, we had 60,000 people in the last 3 weeks, so appreciate that. All right, so I guess I'm going to go. If you're saving yourself for last, is that what
I'll
you're
go.
doing, Travis?
I'll go.
All right.
All right, you
All right,
ready?
here, let's see it.
I'm going to go back with Alex Bowman. I'm going to go with McDowell. I'm going to go with Logano. I'm going to go with, let's see here, Kyle Busch. And my last pick, man, what do I want to do with my last pick here? What do I want to do? I'm going to go with Chastain.
We got one problem, bud. You got to have somebody outside the top 20. I guess Alex Bowman. Does that count?
Does that count?
Oh my God, it does. He was outside the top 20. Jesus. All right.
That's how I got away from
smart. That's smart. That's smart. Who was the last pick? I forgot
Chastain.
already.
Chastain.
All right. Chastain. Will he get Chastain in round 2 of this week? I do actually want to congratulate myself by choosing Riley Herbst last week.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Yeah. That was really bad. All right, so let's just go ahead. We'll wipe everybody's points away. I'm going to go Logano. He's really good here. I actually can't believe nobody chose him, but the guy that's run here really good too is Willie B. So I'm going to go with William Byron. My outside the top 20, the guy that got a top 5 finish here actually had a chance to win it not that long ago, and I'm going to stick with that. That will be Mr. Stacking Pennies himself, Corey LaJoy. And then after that, it gets really, really, really dicey. Man, I'll tell you who's actually done well here, but I'm not going to choose him. Watching him has been a couple times Austin Dillon. I'll probably put him in my FanDuel lineup, and he'll wreck again because that's what I do. I put him in my FanDuel lineup, and then within 4 laps, I'm like, what the fuck's wrong with you, Ryan?
Hey,
What's wrong with you?
the correct pick, if we're going to be honest with you, is Hendricks won 3 out of the 4 of the races since repave, right? So I mean, a Hendrick pick is not terrible here.
Yeah,
if I was smart, I would have just said 4 Hendrick drivers and then like Logano because they won all the races so far.
All right, you talked me into it. I'm going Chase Elliott. And my last driver, I have a hard time picking Kyle Busch because every time I pick him, he doesn't do well. But Kyle Busch has been able to move through traffic at this track unlike any other. So I guess we're going to go ahead and market him 3 ways out.
Did we all three choose Kyle Busch here? We all three chose.
We all three chose Kyle. We all chose Logano.
And we all chose Logano too?
Yeah, so Willie B, Corey LaJoy, and Chase, I can make some points on that. Alex Bowman, Michael McDowell, and Ross Chastain, you can make points on that. And then Joe's got Larson, Noah Gragson, and Ryan Blaney. So we all have 3 guys.
Larson is ballsy. Ballsy.
John, what's going on, John? That's the Stewart Haas guy right there. No, John, we did not choose any. I'm sorry. They're under investigation, and we're scared. We're just really scared. Joe said Kyle, Larson would have won that race last year and was running really well until Ryan Peters was like, hey, look how well Kyle Larson's running, and then he wrecked. And that is actually the truth. He spun out by himself. John said I'm staying SHR. John, guys, find you a soulmate the way that John Forrester looks at Stewart Haas Racing in the eyes. He's loyal. You don't even have to produce. Like, you can just be there. You can just be there. You can tell how great you were in high school. And then and John's still there because he sees that fire, that love, that twinkle in his eye is still there. Stay to yourself, John. Stay true to yourself, buddy. We still love you. All right, guys, if you want to put in the chat your drivers, feel free to. John's got all 4 Stewart Haas Racing guys and then maybe somebody else. Well, John, you don't have to worry about it. You probably chose 3 people outside the top 20. If you want to support the show, you can go to Facebook, Patreon, and Rumble. Those are different ways you can watch and help support the channel. We won't do Burn It Down until after the race, Travis, because we've been here for a while. So I appreciate it. I am a shut the hell front door. I'm a shut the hell front door. Appreciate that. No, I'm just kidding. Stuart Haas fan.
That's an
yeah.
R with a slash in it. That's a SHR.
Yeah.
That's an R
Well,
with a slash in it.
Yeah, well, earlier he spelled Stuart Haas with Stuart being like Stuart Little, and I didn't post it because I thought maybe his spelling teacher was watching. I didn't want that to happen. So, but my name is Ryan Peters for Travis Butt. Thanks again, guys, for the weekly show. Tune in tomorrow. We'll be having a betting show drop. Get your knowledge on who you can make some money on. But this is it. Stuck in a catch fence. See you next time. God bless.